Hey folks, welcome to the first episode after quite a long time of me blabbering about all kinds of... Say hi! In today's episode, I'm gonna be blabbering about whether it's a good time to be a car guy or not. And actually, there's good reasons both to be and not to be, and I'm gonna go through with them. I assume that most of you watching this video already are car guys, so this might, help you cheer up about your hobby, or it might send you straight into crippling depression. We live in new times where the internet is in pretty much everybody's life, and that means that one weirdo from one edge of the world can share a passion for the same box with an idiot on the other edge of the world. And that means that if one guy has a crazy idea in his head, there's a chance that he can fabricate something and someone else will pay good bucks for it. Now, I'm gonna give you an example of something that's obviously not that crazy, but what's crazy is that it's readily available and you can go ahead and order it right now. You can get a 350Z, and if you want to put a 1JZ or 2JZ engine and you want to retain the stock transmission, you can go ahead and buy a kit for that. There's a guy that sells ready-made kits just for that. That kind of stuff would just not be possible like 20 years ago. If you wanted to do something like that, it would have to be something that's one-off. You would have to spend a hefty amount of money to a shop to do something like that. Yeah, it just wouldn't be as worth it as it is now. Stuff like this wasn't that possible. There wasn't as big reach as there is right now. Now, cars are not a new thing and modifying them isn't either. So say if you wanted to turbocharge your Civic like 25 years ago, Grady offered a turbo kit for your Civic. It was plug and play. I think that, it was also offered with some kind of warranty. And it was a solid, robust solution to turbo your Civic. Well, nowadays, there's probably 1 million ways to turbo your Civic. And if you hop on the forums, there's B18C Turbo Lover for Life, which has 10 sticky threads on how to turbo your Civic in this way, in the other way, in the cheaper way, and the cheapest, most raggedy way possible. You can just be taken from the hand on solutions that have been tried and tested many times by what's almost an eternity for a modified vehicle. Part of the great value of mods nowadays is 3D printing. Now, what do I mean by that? Basically, just pretty much any 15-year-old in their bedroom can have a 3D printer, go on like a site that has lots of STL files, and download a file for a 3D intake for his Miata and print it. And a couple hours later, he can have for really cheap a intake that's dyno proven to have horsepower gains, all for the cost of like say $20. And this stuff is not really just limited to tuning parts. It's also for maintenance or just stuff that doesn't exist anymore. Say for example that you have an NB1 Miata. Lots of people swap out the center console for the one for later models, the NB2s, because they have cup holders. But there's no need to do that. If you keep the old one, they were notorious for having their cubby on the armrest. They had a hinge that was breaking, and you can just go ahead. There's a guy that has designed a replacement hinge. You can just download that, print it, and you can have a console that's as good as new. Now, new technologies are not just limited to 3D printing. Now, we also have new technologies in newer cars, and these technologies actually spread from newer cars to the older ones. Say, for example, that you have an old Integra. Nowadays, you can get a new engine management system, and you can pair it with a crazy dashboard that has all kinds of information that you would never care about. You can have lots of sensors so that you could possibly even run E85, have really advanced traction control, boost by gear, crazy good anti-lag, and multi-switching maps based on, the temperature of your exhaust gas. The technology is advancing, and we're seeing all these advancements pass into the older cars as well. So nowadays, you can have a Mazda RX-8 with a triple rotor swap a turbo triple swap, and you can put a 7-speed BMW DCT in it, a dual clutch transmission, and run it perfectly well with a standalone engine management system. So yeah, you can have all that in a 20, 30, 40-year-old chassis, and you can match now finally the nostalgic aura that you had about that car with actual performance that's on par. And you know, nowadays it's easier to find such old legends. Just hop on Facebook, type model name plus club plus the country you're in if it's not the United States, and you're gonna find a car club and you're gonna have all sorts of meets. So it's just a piece of cake to find meets and like-minded people. So I guess that this video's title has been completely misleading, or has it? Well, because you see, for example, these same Facebook groups and Instagram pages meant the death of forums, because, you know, plenty are still around, but their glory days are gone. You know, nowadays you just have all these Facebook groups with idiots that just go on there and post, hey, I want to buy this certain car, this model here, please tell me what are the most common issues to look out for. This is stuff that's been discussed for like tens, hundreds of times on forums for that specific model probably. And you can also find guides on Google or YouTube. It's just idiots that can Google or YouTube search for the life of them. This has always been an issue even on forums, but it's more apparent than ever. So hey, whatever. Idiots are everywhere. Maybe you can take advantage of one. Maybe you can score like, say, a car or a part for cheap. Well, that's not exactly the case anymore, because, for example, if you go on Japanese auctions, on Yahoo auctions, and you want to get that rare part for like a Nissan S13 or a Mazda Miata or whatever. Back in the day, that wasn't such a big deal. You know, you would hop on, there would have been all kinds of stuff, all kind of gear knobs, brochures, all kinds of stuff. Nowadays, it's gonna be you and 5 other people battling to get that exact same brochure, because you know that as soon as you get your hands on it, you can just put an ad on it on Facebook to resell it for, I don't know, 30% profit. Somebody's gonna buy it and they're gonna keep it for a while and they're gonna resell it and make some money. Or at least that's what's been happening for these past couple months and years. You have people spending $200 on an oil cap that you could have gotten for like $30 just 3 years ago. So that's what I would call a bubble. Which leads me to my other thing, which is the used car market bubble. I believe that it's gonna burst soon. You know, remember the times when there was like this odd old lady that had this Nissan 240SX down the block, and a kid would go to her and maybe the kid would get it off her for like $2,000. Well, these days are kind of gone, because that same old lady is way more likely nowadays to just hop on Google, make a Google search, see that her vehicle just sold on Bring a Trailer for like $20,000. So she's gonna tell her grandson to put it on Bring a Trailer, and somebody's gonna buy it. Maybe he's gonna keep it for 1 year, maybe for a couple of months, just fix some things that are wrong with the car and flip it. The same thing's gonna happen again and again. And we have just overly inflating prices and cars that are pretty much unreachable. Prices that are unreachable for the main enthusiast. You know, some years ago, when I was yet another 15-year-old who would go crazy as soon as he saw a Supra, I would get mad for the fact that these cars costed like $40,000. Back then, in order to get a clean Mark IV Toyota Supra with a manual and with a turbo engine, you would need to spend around $40,000. Nowadays, they're fetching $100,000, maybe even more, depending on their condition and how stock they are. People buy them, and they usually just keep them in storage and do maintenance miles. They just sit there collecting dust, and they're just waiting to get flipped onto another person to not get used and make money. Then we have the second kind of idiot who would spend $100,000 on a Supra. Now, that second kind of idiot is the guy who has a YouTube channel with millions of subscribers or millions of followers on Instagram, and basically they're gonna take said Supra and are gonna do all sorts of crazy mods that are just super fancy and expensive, and it's gonna get all the likes and attention from the 15-year-olds on Instagram. And I get it, it's a business for them. They attract people and they make money, so they're not idiots. The people that see them are idiots. But still, we have cars that just have skyrocketed in value to a point which makes absolutely zero sense because of that. And then we have a third, much smaller subcategory, which is the people that just buy these cars to abuse them just for the sake of it, just to make videos and enrage you, me, and other people and give them views. You know, there's a guy that showed up on my Facebook feed. He had like this R32 Skyline that was super nicely modded, forged engine, I think, single turbo, nice exhaust, bright seats, all kinds of stuff, and he just abused it till it stopped moving, pretty much, just for the sake of views. And okay, so what's so bad with all of this? What's bad is that it translates to average Joe. And how does it translate to you and me? Basically, frustration that your build isn't good enough. It's not as perfect as that millionaire who just does all sorts of crazy expensive stuff just for the views. Or maybe you're just so fucked up in the head that you go ahead and buy a Honda S2000 with an enormous chassis wing and like 30 degrees of negative camber just to park it on the meat and take photos of it and attract attention and get likes on social media. Now, I seriously doubt that anyone that has such excessive camber actually likes the look. And not just that, but any other mod that's just crazy and seriously does not look good unless you're into your siblings. I don't know. Both form and function are completely out of the wing. And I'm really, really sorry for you and your car. Maybe just your car. Okay, and that pretty much sums up today's rant. I think that I've ranted enough for today. Just let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. Tell me if you'd like me to rant or express thoughts about anything else, which is something that I love to do. And in case you're wondering what the hell is up with all of this in the wall, I have a link in the description of my Instagram profile, just photography work that I do as a hobby. So maybe check it out and also follow me and tell me what you think about it. And Nissan, please sponsor me. I would really like a 400Z for really important reasons. Okay, bye.